Anyways, MCon killed it, front row, her and her family. So that was the best like Super Bowl ever. And Jeeves showed up right before the This Is Us premiere, and we were all bawling, and Jeeves
Where's
was
Jeeves?
chilling in the middle.
Is he not here?
I don't know. It was great though. He joined. He's a faithful watcher of This Is Us.
I'm still behind, so those of you that are behind, don't feel bad. I'm very behind. Sweet. Well, I'm Norris. Thanks for shouting out my name.
I'm Grace.
Yeah. We seek to be a caring community we seek to be a caring community that want to connect people to Jesus Christ and love on you, love on us, help us all come together. For our first announcement, there's this awesome spring break trip, and just to paint a little picture, you can go, if you don't have any other plans for spring break, you can go to LA Urban Immersion. It's a chance for you to share your faith. Shout out to those of you that went. Grace went. It's a chance for you to share your faith with local like homeless people and urban ministries and get involved with the local churches. And you get to meet people and interact with people that you probably wouldn't interact with otherwise. It's a good chance to step out and be uncomfortable. Jesus calls us to be uncomfortable. So, good opportunity. It's over spring break. It costs $240, but you can do a $40 deposit, and that's due February 27th. So yeah, get stoked. I think Grace is gonna share a bit.
And I think a lot of the times it's like, oh, well, it's only spring break. Like, I only have that amount of time to like binge all my favorite Netflix shows that I missed. But like, God can do so much in your heart in just like 6 days, I think it is. So I would just give that a chance. Like, even if you live next to LA, like Skid Row is just a few blocks away, maybe like a 30-minute drive and 5 miles, but it's really close, and there's a lot of people hurting, and this trip really gives you the opportunity to literally be the hands and feet of Jesus, clean up things that need to be cleaned up, serve food to people that need to be served food. So I highly, highly encourage that if you seek an opportunity to interact with people maybe in a different like financial state than you are, or underserved youth, and etc.
Yeah, so go sign up at the tables in the back. Now we're gonna see a sweet video made by Outreach Team.
Let's go.
Awesome.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I'm just nervous. Like, what do we do if they start yelling at us? You know?
And like if they ask us a question we don't know the answer to, what do we say?
All right, guys, you can go grab some Chick-fil-A. See ya.
All right. Ready for this?
Let's do it.
Hey guys, we're from Crew, which is the
Yeah, we know what crew is. We're not interested.
We don't really believe in fairy tales, sorry.
Oh, sorry to bother you guys.
Hey man, what's your problem? No one wants to listen to you. Gosh, can you just get out of here, please?
Yeah. Just like, why do you feel like the need to bother us?
Hey,
Just
so lame.
leave us alone.
Gosh, can you just get out of here, please?
Yeah. Just like, why do you feel like the need to
All right, guys, remember, it's just a conversation. I'm going to be here the whole time.
Sweet.
Let's do this.
Thanks, man. Hey guys, I'm Garrett. This is Cole. This is Nate in the back.
Hi.
We're from Crew, which is a Christian organization on campus. We just wanted to know if you guys had a second to take a little picture survey and chat.
Yeah. I think we have some time.
Cool. Can we sit down?
Yeah. Sure.
Awesome.
So what are your guys' names?
I'm Savannah.
I'm Jenna.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you guys. Where are you guys from?
I'm from Dana Point.
I'm from Mission Viejo.
Oh,
What about you guys?
Hey everyone, I'm Matt,
I'm Jeanette.
and we're the outreach leaders with Crew. And we know there's a lot of fears that come up when talking about sharing your faith with others. And obviously we took it to the extreme with the video you just saw, but hopefully you could also see from the video that it really is just a conversation that we're having with people. and it's really nothing to be too afraid of. People are really respectful on campus and are actually really open to hearing what you have to believe and sharing what they believe.
Yeah, so every Thursday we have the opportunity to engage our campus in meaningful conversations, and we used to call it sharing times, but we're changing that actually to unashamed after Romans 1:16, where Paul says, "I am not ashamed of the gospel." And so yeah, we are just not ashamed of sharing the love that we have from Jesus. And so come meet us out there every Thursday at 11.
See you out there.
Wow. Well, thank you, outreach team. I'm excited to go sharing in the next weeks. And my name is Michael Murray, and we're excited to present NATO for you guys.
Yeah, so who's excited for NATO?
Woo!
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, NATO stands for Night at the Oscars, and this year it's under the theme of Night Under the Stars. So we're actually having NATO here in Mountain Brook under the stars, and it's on March 10th. It's from 7 to 10 p.m. And Night at the Oscars is a film festival made by, short films made by all of you guys, students of Cruise Central Coast. And the ticket price is only $5 this year, and so that's really a steal, and we're going to start selling tickets next week after the meeting, so come and bring your money and buy your ticket early.
Yeah, so with all the categories going on, one of my favorite categories is where people get to share their stories and share their testimonies. And last year I was really moved by a few stories, and we just want to invite anyone out there who wants to share their story to make a video. And we're just super excited for all the videos that are coming already and that will come. Yeah, thank you. And there is a deadline for your videos. It is the 21st of February. So it's coming fast, but there's still plenty of time to make videos, so yeah.
Yeah, and every video category will have a winner, and then we'll also have an overall Best Picture winner. So if that gives you guys some motivation for some bragging rights, so get started on those videos. Night at the Oscars is also an incredible event to invite your friends to. It's a Saturday night, and it's kind of got maybe a different feel than a weekly meeting. It feels like it might be more accessible to someone who's maybe newer to church. So I'd really challenge you guys. The tickets, like I said, are only starting at $5 this year. So bring $10, buy 2, and give 1 to a friend, and bring someone else into the Cruise Central Coast community.
Yeah, and remember, this is a fancy night, so have a lot of fun dressing up with your friends, and we'll see you there.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, I think we need to start a change. This walk is pretty lengthy. If you're trying to get up here, make a transition. You guys, it's crowded. If the whole worship team's leaving, as a speaker, we need to have a walk-up song. Like, who played baseball out there? Any baseball players? You got your own individual walk-up song, right? So like we could get Jamie Pappas up here with, I don't know, something mellow and kind of moody, because he loves that kind of music. And then Matt Mendoza would be out here with some rap music. I'd maybe be out here with some Head in the Heart or Lumineers. I don't know. We'd think about it. Just something to consider. My name's Jordan Mason, and I get the awesome privilege to work with Crew. So if college wasn't long enough, I decided let's make it like 7 years longer and just stick around, hang out with college students all day. That's the dream job, you guys. You're all trying to get somewhere like Silicon Valley, or I was talking to Joshua, he's trying to go overseas when he graduates. I'm like, the party's here. Like, I'm sticking around. So it's a sweet job, and I've been doing it since I graduated in 2014, and married to Jenny. She's the pregnant lady on campus. If you've seen her walking around, she's smoking hot. She's my wife. She's due March 18th with our first kid. We were walking to campus the other day, holding hands, just like talking as we were headed there, and I saw people passing her, just like giving her the frown, like, did that girl get knocked up in college? Like, are you kidding me? But it's a little different. We're married. We're like, it's all kosher, but pretty excited for our first kid. But yeah, if you're wondering, that's her. She's sometimes on the elliptical at the rec center. She's like, people probably think it's so weird. Like, you just don't see pregnant people on campus all the time. Fair enough. Okay, on to my biological family. Let's throw a picture up. We're getting real retro here. Oh my gosh, it's so dark. Okay, that blob is little Jordan rocking the bowl cut. 96 to 2000 is probably roughly the era that I was rocking the bowl cut. And then dad to the right, mom in the middle, and my little sister Alyssa to the left. She is so cute. This is what I had to compete with. If you had siblings, you know what I'm talking about. Sibling rivalry, am I right? The tension, your parents went through like a boot camp to never tell who was the favorite child, but every sibling is fighting for that title of favorite child, right? And that's who I had to outdo and tried so many things and like, Mom, am I your favorite child? And she would always say, well, you're my favorite son. I'm like, no, not good enough. Am I your favorite child? And the funny thing is we all know that that's true, and for some of us, that's still the case. We're fighting for that favorite child, even though our parents love us, that kind of thing. But in the story that we're going to read tonight, the disciples are fighting for like that same title with Jesus. If you're new to Crew, we're pumped that you're here. Like Norris said, we seek to be a caring community, passionate about connecting people to Jesus, and we're going to fail at that, but we're super excited that you're here, and we're going through a series called The Way, the Truth, and the Life of Jesus. So basically what we're doing, Jesus is this crazy historical figure. He lived, he was real, it's documented, and he said some really crazy things. And we're like, if what he said is true, if who he said he was is true, then that's going to impact how we live. So that's kind of why we're in this series. If you're new, we're excited for you to jump in with us. Turn in your Bibles or your phone apps, or if you bring an iPad out, who knows, to Mark 10. It'll be also up on the screens. Mark 10, verse 35. It says, and James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him, Jesus, and said to him, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. And he said to them, what do you want me to do for you? And they said to him, grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. Jesus said to them, you don't know what you are asking. We'll just pause there. Is this ridiculous? Like, they go up to Jesus. Would you ever do this to anybody, let alone Jesus Christ, and say, yo, Jesus, we want you to do whatever we ask of you? Like, that is outrageous. If I did that to my mom and dad, they would just like slap me. No. First of all, ages 1 to 3, the one lesson that you learn, say please, right? Please and thank you. It was like the one thing that you had to learn in preschool. And apparently James and John just totally skipped that whole like first 3 years of life, or their parents just didn't teach it to them. But like the audacity just to say, yo, Jesus, do whatever we ask of you. Let's keep reading. So again, in 38, Jesus said to them, you do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized? That's a lot of baptisms. And they said to him, we are able. And Jesus said to them, the cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. There it is again. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So what we're seeing here is this conflict, I think, of the disciples, their question to Jesus, and then the other disciples, their response to him, is showing an undercurrent that I think is true in every single one of our lives. It's the tension between being self-focused and being others-focused. So the disciples demonstrate that they're being self-focused in that moment. What's going on here? They're asking Jesus, if we can go back to, I think, the first section of verses. Yeah. What do you want me to do for you? They said to him, grant us to sit one at your right and one at your left in your glory. James and John think that Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem to kick out the Romans and establish himself as king of Israel. and make them a great nation again. So James and John, they're like, yo, they're talking on the road. This might be our last chance. Like, we got to make sure that we get our spot. You know, like, we got to be next to Jesus when he becomes king. Like, that way we'll know we're important. We got to get that spot. And so they decide to talk to him. What's crazy is, like, 2 chapters earlier in Mark, all the disciples are walking together, and I just picture it like Jesus is a little bit ahead. They create some space so they can, like, talk about what they want to without getting, like, in trouble with Jesus. Not that he would actually be mad at them, but they're like, I mean, he's really holy. Like, if we're going to talk about things, we should probably keep our distance. So they're all walking together, and they start debating which of us is going to be the greatest. Like, when Jesus establishes his kingdom, which of us will be the greatest? And Jesus says, it's not about who will be greatest. He says basically the same thing. You actually have to be the servant of all. And then 2 chapters later, James and John are like, you know what? He probably didn't mean it. Let's take matters into our own hands. And here we see, it's so blatantly obvious, but I think when we take a second to pause and look at our own lives, we'll see we have the same temptation at work in our hearts to be self-focused. I think of stories in my own life. We were talking about Super Bowl Sunday, right? So we had some people over, Jenny and I made some guac, and I was like, oh my gosh, why do I only have 1 bag of chips for the Super Bowl? So I rush out to Target, grab the chips, throw them in my Trader Joe's reusable bag, you know, it's slow, and I'm walking down that main aisle, you know, cosmetics, beauty supplies on your right, school supplies in that sick new home section on your left, and I see literally like 6 people loaded with carts, and I'm like, oh no, I cannot afford to be stuck behind 6 people with loaded Target carts when I have like 2 bags of chips. So I like get my power walk on going through Target to beat these people to the checkout. And sure enough, it's like the last second, squeeze in front of the last guy, first in line at the self-checkout. It felt pretty good, but like that's just like a simple example of me being self-focused in that moment, like as if they didn't have a Super Bowl party to get to, as if they didn't have places to be. I'm like, no, I have places to be. I think of one time that I was driving down the 5. We were coming home from Jenny's family, 2 lanes, and they close one of the lanes on the 5. You see the signs like, get over, and people are starting, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna merge, but there's still a bunch of lane. You know when this happens, like there's still a bunch of lane before you like really have to get over? I'm trying to be a good guy and get over and not like cut everybody else off who's in the slow lane. And as I get over, people are just zooming by me. So like 6 cars go by, and they're gaining maybe 10 cars, maybe 15 seconds total on the drive, and I'm just like, oh, this is bugging me so much. Like, it's causing me to go slower. So I move over, block both lanes so no one can get by, and the guy behind me is just railing on his horn, and I was like, you're about to have to merge. But in that moment, like, what was happening was like, no, they are making me 15 seconds slower to getting home to slow. This is not happening. Like, another example of being self-focused. Maybe you guys have experienced the same thing. Like, am I even a Christian when I drive? I'm trying to be. Honestly, I'm trying to be. The classic example, Jenny and I had just gotten engaged. It's literally a month to the day later. We're celebrating her birthday. Our whole relationship was long distance. So this is a big deal. It's the first time we're in the same place for one of our birthdays. And what I did is I basically planned a day with all things that I would want to do and just said like, happy birthday. And so we drove in my 97 Volvo 850, leather seats, no air conditioning. It was premium, but not on a hot day. And we took a windy road to like get to this coffee shop that I really wanted to go to. And if you know me, like a coffee shop is something that I would want to do. Jenny's like, I'd rather be outside and going for a hike. And so like at the end of the day, and I even got her a gift that was like something that I kind of secretly wanted and was just like, here, happy birthday. And so like that was probably the epitome, like the low of like Jordan's like self-focus, trying to brand it as like serving someone else. But I think like these are all kind of funny examples, maybe not so funny, but we can all see, like if we take a second to just pause, like we can see how we do those same types of things. And what it demonstrates is that just like the disciples, we have a self-focus. And I think Jesus presents a different way to live, which is what I'm challenged by and what I'm excited to just like prompt you guys with tonight. I accidentally mixed up the worship with my notes and was about to start singing one of the songs. Okay, the tension. What's the difference? There's self-focused faith and then there's others-focused faith. Self-focused faith, this is what it kind of looks like. We treat Jesus like the disciples in this verse. We come to Jesus because of what he does for us. We come to Jesus because he brings benefits. He brings joy to our lives. He will make our lives better. Broad term, not really descriptive, just like he will make my life better. We treat Jesus as a vending machine where I put my requests in and soon enough, my results come out. If I tell Jesus what I want, he will in turn give it to me. If I tell him about this internship that I'm really hoping for, Jesus will hear me, and because I go to church on Sundays and read my Bible, he will give me this internship. Or I think about how there's things that I wanted, in college, I wanted a new pair of soccer cleats that were on eBay, and I was like, Jesus, if you really want me to get it, you'll help me get the bid at this amount of money and not let someone else get it over me. Those are just such weird things that we think of, but it's like treating Jesus as a vending machine. We expect him to simply answer our requests and do things for us, rather than seeing him as someone worthy of our affection, worthy of our lives, worthy of all of our being. We think that our life will simply be better because of Jesus, and that's why we follow him. Sometimes it seems like that's why the disciples were with Jesus, because they thought their lives would be better. Even the questions that Jesus got were centered around what he would do for people as opposed to who he was and why he was worthy of following. I think of even this is where the one-upping of Christianity can come from, where sometimes I remember, it even happens still, we're all try to put myself above someone else because of I read this spiritual book, or I had 5 quiet times this week, or I posted an Instagram of my prayer time with Jesus. We can try to one-up each other in Christianity, just like the disciples were doing. They were trying to earn their place in Jesus's pecking order. There were 12 of them. It's I definitely don't want to be his 12th disciple. I want to be at least top 3, And sometimes we can joke about that, but if we're honest, how often do we see this in our own lives? The Jesus way is to be others focused, and it flips conventional wisdom on its head. Jesus said things that made literally no sense by earthly standards. He said, the way to be first is to be last. The way to be rich in the kingdom of heaven is to give away all your money, is to be poor. The way to inherit eternal life is to die to yourself. The way to be greatest is to be a servant. These are things that are countercultural. That's the term I would use. They are countercultural. And yet sometimes I want it to just be semi-countercultural or barely against the culture. You know what I'm saying? That's just me being honest. The reality is Jesus flips the culture and the way that we function upside down. Let's skip ahead to the second to last verse slide. Yeah, one more. Thanks, Ryan. You're killing it. By the way, our sound team and tech team and slides guys, let's give them a round of applause. Every week here, taking care of business, pumping out new song slides. These guys are amazing. And Katie does sound as well. Hayden, Ryan, Dustin does live stream, Kyle Fletcher in the back, all those guys. Okay, actually, one more slide back. So when Jesus says, you will drink this cup, you will be baptized with that baptism thing, he's saying the same story that I had, you will have as well. So when he says, the cup that I drink in the baptism, he's talking about his suffering. He's talking about the difficulty of life. Jesus went to death on a cross. Jesus was, in that moment, spat upon, beaten, verbally abused. And he's saying to the disciples, when you come to me, you don't come because your life will be better. He actually says, suffering and difficulty will come in this life. We expect suffering and difficulty in this life because life is just hard, no matter who you are. Our faith is proven genuine when we endure suffering and difficulty and don't turn away from God because things aren't going the way that we want to. So Jesus is he's presenting the tension of when you come to me just because life will be better, what happens when it doesn't go how you intended it to go, or when it goes how you didn't want it to go? He's saying your foundation has to be on something other than the comfortability of this life. It has to be on me. So he's just acknowledging that hard times are going to come, don't turn away just because of that. Know that I have fullness of joy for you that's despite circumstances. The other thing is that Jesus is the man for others. If we can go down to that next section, he's telling them, your leaders, what you're used to, they take power and they exercise authority and control over you, but not so with you. In fact, you're called to be servants of others, and Jesus represents this in his entire life. He said, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Think of how insane this reality is. Jesus, God, he's the creator of the heavens and the earth. It says that in him we live, we move, we breathe, we have our being. He comes to earth, he's all powerful, he's holy. Even in heaven, before he came to earth, angels would sing to him and say, you're holy, 24/7, like nonstop. He's just used to hearing his holiness. And then he comes to earth, and he's treated as a second-class citizen. People call him a liar. People say that he's a blasphemer, that he isn't actually who he says he is. He's treated completely complete opposite of what he deserves. But even when you think about an earthly king, like earthly kings, they know that they're great, and you might have a humble king, but yet they expect praise, they expect affirmation, they expect even worship. But Jesus came and said, even though I have a right to all of these things, even though I am the greatest thing that this world has ever seen, I'm going to come as a normal dude, walk around with the least of the people of that day, and I'm not going to ask them to serve me. I'm actually going to serve them. We see Jesus washing the disciples' feet. We see him sitting. Jamie spoke week 2 about him sitting with a woman caught in adultery who was cast out and rejected by society. We see Jesus sitting and serving her in his words and his care in that moment. We see Jesus touching people who had leprosy, that were cast out of the entire society. No one ever talked to them or went near them. We see Jesus sitting with the poorest of the poor. We see Jesus hanging out with the tax collectors who were shut out by their own countrymen because they had rejected their identity, their culture, their people. We see Jesus sitting with the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman who's from a different ethnic group, is clearly shamed by her own tribe, her own people, because she's getting water in the middle of the day. Jesus came not to receive praise or affection from those people, even though he deserved it, but to serve those people. And the reality is, we can think that Jesus is primarily just a mega example or a mega role model that we're to live by. Wow, Jesus was this amazing guy. Let me just try to be like him. But if we live like that, we're going to be crushed. I would say we're going to be crushed and completely destroyed by our inability to measure up to that standard, because Jesus did it perfectly. But instead, if we see Jesus as not just moralism programmed to make us better people, and this is kind of what Matthew talked about last week, if you were here. He said a lot of times in Christianity, we can treat Jesus, there's a funnel to kind of like get people into a certain way of living, a certain lifestyle, a certain spiritual practice. Don't cuss, don't drink, don't have sex, give some money to the poor, and we just like funnel people into this lifestyle and behavior practice, and then we say that's the way to Jesus. That's how you become a Christian. But in fact, Jesus says, come as you are, and I will make you into a new person. I'll rework those things. I'll rewire you. I'll make a completely new identity, a new perspective in you. And so this is the same. If we just see like, man, I should serve more, I should volunteer more, I should give more money away, and we just try to do what Jesus did, we'll be crushed by our inability to do it. But instead, if we see Jesus as the way to rewire us, we're talking, instead of being self-focused, to flip that upside down and make us others focused, what's that going to be like? We're going to experience joy, we're going to experience intimacy with Christ, and we're going to experience freedom because we don't have to focus all the time internally making sure that we're getting what we need or what we deserve or what we want out of life. The reality is Jesus is offering a new way to live. And I think why it's so powerful is because Jesus is literally saying, I went that road for you so that you can find all that you're searching for. The reason that you're self-focused is because there's a core issue in our hearts. We want affection, we need purpose, we need identity. And Jesus says, instead of looking for that on your own, find that in me because I can be your identity. I can give you purpose. I can show you that you're significant. I will tell you, he's saying, I love you. I created you for a purpose. You're beautiful just as you are. You don't need anything else. You don't need to strive for people's affection or attention. You don't need to get more money out of this life because I have riches for you that you have no idea of. And so he's saying, I can be all of that for you to set us free to be others focused. And I think that's what's so radical. It's not just a moralism program. I think sometimes we can come to a group like this, we can hear a great talk, some 3-step action points to being a better Christian, and instead of seeing that as Jesus, make me who you want me to be, we say, okay, great, I'm gonna put this in my planner. Tuesdays, I'm gonna be nice to this person. Wednesdays, I'm gonna give $5 to that person at Starbucks. Thursday, and we create a to-do list. But that misses it. That doesn't change the heart. The disciples, 2 chapters ago, were asking, who's gonna be the greatest? And Jesus said, no, it's not about that. 2 chapters later, James and John are like, okay, yeah, Jesus, but how do we get that seat right and left? How do we get those premier positions? And I think that's demonstrating they're not getting the heart change. They're just trying to change behavior. They're trying to ask it a different way, go about it in a different lens, a different angle. Jesus is trying to rewire how we function. I want to just think through how can someone be like this? It's because they found an identity in Jesus where they no longer have to focus on themselves. They're freed to focus on others. And I just thought I would share some examples, celebrate some lives who have been modeled by this. So if we could put up first picture. This is a woman her name is Shorty Kumalo. And I was at this conference in 2012, and she is from Swaziland. And there's an entire population of people where whole villages are made up of AIDS victims. And they're dying slow, painful, difficult deaths. It's almost like the leper epidemic of Jesus' day, where they are completely ostracized and people won't visit them. People are afraid to give them medical care that they need because they don't want to contract the disease from infected blood. But Shorty has dedicated her life to be a caregiver, and all the while loving on people, praying for them, singing songs with them, being in fellowship with them, and sharing the hope of Christ with them. She's putting herself in danger to be a servant of others. I'm amazed by her story. I think of, before we go to the next picture, I think of our friends Grant and Tiffany, who, if you were here last week, they shared raw, vulnerable stories of their struggle in the LGBTQ realm. Grant identifies as a celibate gay Christian, and Tiffany says she's on a journey and would consider herself bisexual, but she doesn't know how that all plays out. And I think they have to have an identity in something other in order to serve us by sharing that story. If their identity was in what people thought about them or what they did, or even making sure that they were cared for, first of all, they have to self-sacrifice to say I'm going to deny my impulses and my desires to say that Jesus is Lord, I want to follow him. And secondly, they have to surrender their need for approval, affection, attention from others in order to say, I'm going to serve you by sharing this story with you. I just think that's an example as well of people serving us. There's another example. This guy is called the man with the golden arm. His name is James Harrison. He's an Australian blood donor who has a rare blood type. And as a result of his blood type, he saved 2 million lives because it prevents, his blood type is special blood that prevents a disease. He's donated blood over 1,000 times in his life. And I just think this is an example of this is what I have to give. And so he gives his blood. We all have different things that we can be servants in, different realms, different opportunities. There's a man named Pastor Lee in South Korea. Maybe you've heard about him. I think there is a documentary about him. He created this thing called the drop box because so many babies in South Korea were being discarded when it was discovered that they had a mental handicap. And they were just left on the side of the road, and he was like, enough is enough. And he created a box and said, if you drop off your baby, I will make sure that baby is cared for, fed, and looked after. And I don't know when the statistic is last updated, but it was something like 350 babies that he is like taken in, cared for, and like either put in a home or a family or like continues to care for today. It's insane. That's an example of giving your life in service of something or someone else. There's a guy named Charles Feeney who invented duty-free, and he amassed a total wealth of $7 billion, and over his lifetime has given 99% of it away. 99% of it away. And he said, from when I set out, I always thought wealth serves one purpose, and that's to go to serving others. And so even as he got richer and richer, he didn't change his lifestyle, he didn't take on more cars or bigger house. He said, I'm gonna keep doing me, and I'm gonna give more and more of it away. I'm just like, that's amazing. That takes such surrender. I think of friends, these are a little bit more like close and personal to me. Jeff and Kathy McNair go to my church in Redlands, California. There was a problem where a bunch of, in our area, churches just weren't providing opportunities for people with mental handicaps or disabilities. And so they would come to church, they would try to be involved, but it was just like really hard to be in the children's ministry or different things. And Jeff and Kathy were like, we have a passion to start a ministry. So they started this ministry called Light and Prom that now that's like what they do on Sundays. Like sometimes they go to the main service, but a lot of times they're just like serving that community, and it's turned into this giant ministry with like tons of people from my area of Southern California with mental illness and disability that come and are ministered to by that and told that they're beautiful and important and loved. And every year, this is the best part, they have a prom because so many of them couldn't go to their high school prom. Every year they have a prom so they can get dressed up, go and like have a blast and not feel like they're sticking out or like they're a sore thumb, and they just like have belonging. It's amazing. I don't have a picture for this one, but my friends, the Cooper family, they were just struck by like the problem of homelessness in our area. And so they just opened up their garage, they had a spare bedroom, they're like, someone can stay with us, and we're gonna have a food pantry every Sunday, and also kind of have a church service, and like, they just started doing homeless ministry. Like, they weren't like, I'm just gonna go volunteer. Like, they were just like, let's start it. Like, let's just do one. We'll collect canned goods, we'll just keep this section of our garage open, and they started a homeless ministry because that's what God put on their heart. I think it starts with a micro step. So as we're talking about serving, the temptation would be to think of these grand examples and think, yeah, I want to do that. Like, I would do that if it came down to it. Or if I was in an AIDS colony, like, I would be like Shorty. But I think Jesus says this incredible statement where he says, he who is faithful with little will be faithful with much. So we're sitting here today, and maybe you're not going to move to Swaziland tomorrow, and maybe you're not going to go start an inner city ministry in Compton, but maybe you could take a step to go on the Compton urban immersion trip. Or maybe you could take a step to befriend that classmate that seems to sit alone every single week, or the awkward lab partner that no one else likes in your group project or in your lab group, and people talk about him behind his back, and you're like, man, but I'm called to love this person. And you take a step to befriend them, and not just like, oh, I'll talk to them, but like, actually, you know what it means to be a friend, like to befriend someone. So I think what I'm saying is not like, hey, let's just try to be nicer like in this community of crew, and I'm saying like, every once in a while, like buy your roommate a Starbucks, or don't get me wrong, like definitely do those things and definitely be servants of each other. But Jesus is calling us to an even greater thing. When he says, in fact, if you want to be the greatest, you're supposed to be the slave of all. Like, that's not just saying the people that are right next to you and are already your friends. He's saying like the least of these. He's saying the people that are hardest to love. He's saying the things that like actually cost you something. It's a radical call, which is why we can't do it by ourselves, which is why we can't just make ourselves better people. He's saying, you need my help to do this, and I'll start to change you if you just take a step. So it's kind of holding it in tension, like he's calling us to a great thing, but it doesn't start by moving overseas to Swaziland. It actually starts tomorrow in your lab group. It starts on Thursday night when you're at Farmers and you see the homeless dude that you've seen each and every time. And instead of maybe just like giving him your leftovers, you're like, hey guys, could we just invite him to eat with us at Habit tonight? And you invite him to come and sit with you and you get to know him. I think of other examples where there's people on our campuses that we have lacked serving. The LGBTQ community is a population that, as a Christian body, we have really failed to serve. And I'm not saying going and doing things for them or saying like, hey, I'm a Christian and like, I'm supposed to love you. But it's like saying, hey, like, I want to get to know your story. And I want to know like why it's so difficult on this camp. Maybe you don't lead with that question, but I'm saying like establish a friendship and just like sometimes story is one of the most effective ways to like hear and share experience with someone. That's a way to serve. I think of our people of ethnic minorities on our campuses. The reality, at least of Cal Poly's campus, is it's primarily white, and our friends who are ethnic minorities can feel alone and even like out of place. And I think we as a Christian community need to be the ones to take a first step to say like, man, I really want to hear like your story or like how it's been hard to be on this campus because I know that it has been. Or to say like, I saw that article, I saw this event, like it's engaging with people. That's a way to serve. Again, let's put up real quick the list of what it means to serve someone. In order to serve others, I think it starts with understanding. We have to know, like when I got Jenny a present that she didn't really want and took her on that birthday event that she didn't really enjoy, that was because I wasn't understanding what she was wanting. And I think that part of serving people is hearing like, what are the ways that you want to be loved? It's being with them and knowing like their likes, their dislikes, their interests, like the ways that we can serve them. Even going on the LA urban immersion trip, like you're gonna hear what it's like to enter that world, and you're not gonna fix it in 1 week, but you're gonna learn how to have a different lens and a different posture to serve a community that's different from you. I think it starts with compassion, not pity. If we go around serving people, it's like, oh my gosh, poor you, I'm so sorry, and like trying to help, like you're gonna end up making people feel bad and you're gonna be acting like you're their savior. But Jesus is saying, no, like be in it with them. Jesus didn't tell the adulterous woman like, yeah, pretty bad what you did, but you know, like, I love you. Like he was just in it with her and just like mourning with her and sitting in that. And so I think it starts with compassion, not pity. And we have to enter with humility, not coming in like we're gonna save the day or fix all of their problems. The challenge is a lot of times we think that as Christians, we're just called to be like slightly better than the people next to us. We're just called to be like a little bit more loving, or like maybe like give a little bit more of our income, or like a little bit more of our time. But the reality is Jesus is calling us actually to a totally flipped paradigm where he's saying, no, it's going to the nth degree. Like it's going to the greatest length. It's going the extra mile. But again, that journey starts with just one step tomorrow. And that's my encouragement to you is tomorrow. And tonight we're gonna go into a discussion time and just like think through like, what is my micro step? Don't think like, again, the example is like, how do I get to Swaziland? Because that's like across the world and a major step, but it's like, no, how do I make a micro step today that will make my life bent towards others focused instead of self-focused? And then trust that God will write a story like the ones that I shared tonight through your life to impact the lives of others. Like what greater joy would that be to look back on your life and realize, man, God used me to like change so many lives. And I can't imagine what the Central Coast would feel like if we all committed to like micro steps each and every day to see God change the lives of those around us. So we're gonna go into discussion time, gather with like 3 or 4 people, not too big, just so everybody can share. And we're gonna discuss these 2 questions or whatever you took away from the talk, and then we're gonna close it out with worship. So yeah, spend about 8 minutes, I think, just discussing and trying to like take to heart what we just heard. So thanks.
Sisters, raise your hands in praise. Lift your heads. Taste and see all He's done. Heaven to earth has come. Fathers, shout the victor's cry. Brothers, feast upon His life. Joy has dawned, death has been overthrown. Mercy is on its throne. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Sinners, come behold your King. Sufferers, rise with hope and sing. All is well, mercies are new this day. Burdens all met with grace. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. All helpless, all secure, all hopeful and all broken, all thankless and all poor, all peaceful and all violent, all fearless, all afraid, all angry, all rejoicing, all doubting, all assured, all joyful and all mourning. Come gaze upon His glory. Come receive His love and mercy. His grace declares His glory. You are loved forever, holy. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name sing worthy. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is he. Sing a new song to him his song. Heaven's mercies holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation, all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Sing clothed in rainbows. Rainbows of living color, flashes of lightning, rolls of thunder. Blessing and honor, strength and glory empower me. To you, the only wise King. Yeah. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. For all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Filled with wonder, filled with wonder, awestruck wonder at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, such a marvelous mystery. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. infinite grace. God, you bore my shame. Won't make the mistake of living like I'm my own. Whatever it takes, God, show me your way. I'm willing to wait what this world has to offer. For infinite grace, God, you bore my shame. Won't make the mistake of living like I'm my own.
Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you for bringing us here together, giving us a place to come and worship you, Lord. I pray as we go out from Crew this week, Lord, we live to learn a life focused on others and not just ourselves, Lord. And I pray that you help us to move in you throughout the rest of this quarter and the rest of our lives, Lord. In your name, amen.
Yo, 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 where the ladies at? Let's make some noise. My name is Cara Dowds.
And I'm Lauren Talbot, and we are your women's team leaders for this year.
So we got some cool events coming up for you guys. Starting this Friday, we have the first ever women's game. This is going to be a photo scavenger hunt in downtown SLO. Some things to know, it starts Friday the 9th at 4 o'clock. Grace Church, you got to dress in all black. This is going to be highly competitive, and there will be a prize, but you got to show up to see what that is. Definitely invite your friends.
All right. And the very next day, we have a super cool event going on. It's called the If Gathering. I don't know if, yeah, I see a couple of you guys have been to it. It's super cool. So what it is, it's a conference actually held out of Texas, and it's broadcasted to SLO, so at Calvary SLO. It actually goes on February 9th and 10th, but awkward, we have some scheduling conflicts, so come to our event. But, so it answers the questions, if God is real, then what? So come check it out. It's going to be some awesome worship, some really cool speakers, and some awesome community from around SLO. Like, there's some 7-year-old ladies that come from Cayucas and drop some, like, serious life wisdom. So check it out.
Sweet. And then we also have the Women's Real Talks coming up on February 13th and February 20th. That will be held in Baker 102 at 11 a.m. And if you're wondering what that was, Lauren is going to tell you a little bit more about that.
So basically, we're going to talk about things that women really need to talk about. So we're going to be talking about idolatry of relationships, whether that's platonic or romantic. So come hear a super cool panel of ladies from all different perspectives talk about these really important topics. So yeah, week 6 and week 8, Tuesdays 11 to 12. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited for those women's events. I'm going on Friday. I am stoked to just get so serious and take photos. I think the key part is that you have to have your phones charged, you know? Then you're just like useless. You can't take photos. But we still love to have you there, obviously. Thanks so much, Jordan, for just sharing your heart for how to serve others. We have some really awesome opportunities for you to actually do that. This is one micro step you could take. We have this event called Beloved Day. It happens, it happens on Valentine's Day, and it's basically where we get the opportunity to write Valentine's to the Pride Center, Multicultural Center, Gender Equity Center, and SAFER, all centers on campus which maybe haven't felt the love of Christians or just don't get appreciated in general. So you guys all have the opportunity tonight to continue to write Valentines to these centers. And then you also have the opportunity to sign up to come with us and join us in dropping off Valentines. We will also have cookies and flowers. So it's a really, really great way to just bless these centers and let them know that we appreciate the work that they're doing on campus and to literally show them love. So I would encourage you guys to come to the back, talk to one of us. We've got little prompts. If you're like, what is the Gender Equity Center? We can help you and guide you on how to love them well.
Sweet. Sounds like a great opportunity. I'm probably going to write a few cards when I go back. I didn't get a chance to do it last week. But with that, if you're a Kruber driver,
raise your
shout
hand
out
if you're a
to
Kruber
all
driver.
The Kruber drivers, we appreciate it.
Round of applause for the Kruber drivers.
Yeah, stay faithful. Yeah, just want to thank the Kruber drivers for staying faithful and consistent with bringing anyone that's at the pack. If you didn't know Kruber existed, you could join in on the fun next week. Thanks, Jordan, for the great talk. I think I'm just going to close out in prayer. If this is your first time, you could just sit and soak it in. But I'm going to pray just because I think that that's a way to have your hearts in a condition so that we can go out and be lights and examples based on tonight's talk. So yeah, you bow your heads. God, I thank you that we get to be here as a community, that we get to wrestle over ideas of what it looks like to truly walk with you and love you and be in a relationship with you. I thank you that we get to share that love with other people, even though we're broken and we're sinners, that you still call us and love on us in that way and call us to love others despite who we are in our own circumstances. Yeah, I just pray that we can continue this quarter and the rest of the school year loving on others and taking initiative in places where we otherwise would not. Yeah, just pray that we would step out of our comfort zones and continue to be your children and honor you. In your name we pray, amen.